everyone, welcome to another video from 3D Redbox channel. My name is Mehdi and today we are going to talk about a great feature inside Unreal Engine 5.5.6 that I'm using here. And this great feature can give us a freedom during the texturing and shadering inside the Unreal Engine, especially for the big asset and modular asset. So first of all, let's understand what are we going to, what is our mission. So I have a big module pack and I want to text shader. So this is my mission and I have more than 100 asset module pack and I couldn't go for the traditional texturing way, go to the Substance Painter, create texture for each asset and bring it to engine, because in this way I just create tons of texture that they can decrease my performance in general. Okay, so I need to find that I can these assets, keep the quality, keep the performance high. So for this kind of scenario, what are our options? And in Unreal Engine 5.5 and 6, how we can achieve and implement the technique for the texturing of these assets. Okay, so this is the mission, this is the question, and now it's time to break down some basics and concept to understand the situation, and after that we can propose the solution and we jump back to this model and implement that solution to this asset. Okay, so first of all we need to break down some concept here. So when we have big asset or a tons of modular pieces, so this is not a good idea to go to the Substance Painter and start texturing over there, because if you want to keep the quality, you need to increase your texture size, you need to increase your texture amount, and at the end you face to big amount of texture with big size, like 100 texture in 4K size. Okay, so this is not a good idea to have this kind of situation if you need performance in the game engine, especially in Unreal Engine. So what is the solution here? First of all, for this kind of asset, we should use tileable or seamless textures as a base material. Okay, and after that we need to find a way to combine these type of surfaces together, like what we do inside Substance Painter. We have different layer, which we can call them here as a base material or tileable material, and we combine them with the masks and we add details like dirt or anything like that. Okay, so in the game engine we have two ways to combine these tileable surfaces together. The first one is with mask and the second one is with vertex color. So as we know, for creating mask and applying mask to something, we need to have UV, okay? But for vertex color and creating mask with vertex color, we just need to have vertex. So each of these paths has different advantages and disadvantages, but I'm not talking about the advantages or disadvantages that we have for each of them. Just mention some of them and that's it, because we need to focus on the feature that I'm talking about here in Unreal Engine very soon, okay? So we know that right now that we can create mask or use vertex color to combine different tileable surface together, right? So for demonstrating these methods, I'm going to create simple materials with colors and apply it to these planes. And after that, we understand how it works. And after understanding the concept and the overall thing here, we come back to the model and use the newest feature. Okay, so let me just clean up here a little bit. So here I'm going to create a material and let's call it M mask. And I'm going to create another one and let's call it vert. Okay, let's talk about the models here. So the model in the left, if we just turn on the wireframe here, as we can see, we have a lot of vertices here. Okay, so this model is more suitable for using in the vertex paint technique. Okay, so the first thing here is if you want to use vertex color method in the texturing process or shadering process in Unreal Engine or any other kind of engines that you want to use, you need vertex. Okay, and if the vertex count and the vertex amount is important for you to keep it low, this is not a good option to go with the vertex paint. But if it's not a limitation for you, the vertex paint could be a good solution for this kind of situation. I mean, the big assets or modular assets or any kind of other asset that we need to avoid unique texturing, and we should use tileable and combine them inside the engine, okay? But in the right side, we have a model with just 4 vertices. And this kind of model is not suitable for using in Vertex Paint method. Okay, so for the right, we go with the mask, and with the left, we go with the Vertex Paint. Okay, so let's go and let's just create the material here. So I'm going to open the material for the Vertex Paint, and inside the material editor, I just bring some of the color. That's it. And I'm going to define a red color here, some greenish, and maybe some yellow. Okay, so I have these three color, and I want to combine them on the surface or on the model that I have with information that I'm going to paint on the surface on the vertices. Okay, so we need to define how they going to combine together. So here I'm going to use lerp, as you can see, and for the A, let's just put the C1, for the B, C2, and for the second lerp and the B input, I'm going to use C3. Okay, it's connected to the base color, and this is the place that I can define my mask for combining this information together. So for using vertex color information, I need to bring the vertex color node here. Okay, and after that I can put, okay, so whenever I use the red channel and when I paint information on red channel in the vertex color, just define the mask for lerping between C1 and C2. And again, we can go for the second lerp or second combination for the result of the C1 and C2 to C3 in a green channel of vertex color information. Okay, so that's it. So we call the vertex color information and we use it in the shader like this. And let's save it. Let's go back to the test scene. I'm going to create a material instance of that and just put it on the surface. Okay, perfect. And now it's time to turning off the wireframe here, and let's go to the mesh paint section. So on the mesh paint menu, we have vertex color, and whenever we select some model on the scene, we have this ability to come here to the paint section and just paint the vertex information that we want, which is color. Okay, and inside the color painting area, we can define, for example, I want to paint blue, green, yellow, or purple. Okay, and each of these color, they just have a different value on R, G, and B. But this is not a good way to paint on a vertex color section. So what is the best way to paint on the surface when we are going to use vertex color method? The best way is keep the paint color white and erase color as black. And if you want to paint on a red channel to define the mask for combination between C1 and C2, you need to uncheck these two and just keep the red. Okay, and right now you can paint here. Okay, so but nothing happened. And what's the problem? So first of all, we need to switch the viewport or color view mode from off to RGB channel. Okay, and as you can see, we have a white value on all vertices. So we need to reset that. For resetting this, I just press X on the keyboard to just swap the erase color and the paint color and use the fill option here. But as you can see, this is not a black color. Okay, we just remove the red information from the vertices here. Okay, so we need to turn on all the channel, fill again, and this is the black. Okay, and just disable green and blue and press X again. So right now, when I paint here, as you can see, this is the mask that I'm creating in a red channel, okay? And I'm just defining mask for how C1 and C2 is going to combine together. So what is the result? If I change the color view to off, I can see the result here, okay? So let me just bring the material instance here. And I want to change this one to something purple and here to something white. And as you can see, it's going to be changed in real time. Okay, so that's it. So we define the mask for combining between C1 and C2. And what about the C3? Okay, let's put it red here so we can see the difference. And for defining mask for C3, we need to turn off the red and turn on the green and just paint on the surface. And as you can see, we have this result that we can come here and change the value, okay? And imagine, instead of C1, C2, and C3, we have material 1, material 2, and material 3, okay? And we define this mask should be used for combining between these material, okay, surfaces. So that's it. And what is the disadvantages of using this vertex color method? I can mention two of them. The first one is the quality here is not great, and it depends on the vertex count, okay? Whenever you have a huge amount of vertices on the surface, you can get better mask. And for solving this bad quality in the mask, we need to implement a lot of tweaking and extra work on the shader to create better mask. And what is the advantages of using this technique here? This is very important. So this information about the masking and the color and etc., it's super light and it's super great for optimization and performance. And the second thing here is if I duplicate this model, I can go to the mesh paint again. And as you can see, I can come here to the paint and I can remove the information here and just paint again and create a totally new mask for this object. So here, as you can see, we have two models from one source. So this is the source and the source is not duplicated or anything. This is just an instance. And the information inside the material is not duplicating. It means we are not creating extra information here, but at the end, we have different masks on the surface, different combination between layers, and this is very good for something like big asset or modular asset, because on the modular asset, we have same module, but we want to have different look at the end for each of them, okay? When we use them across the environment, it's very crucial to have variation without touching the source and increase the information like texture amount or duplicating the source mesh or anything like that. So the vertex paint is very handy when we're dealing with something like modular. And this is the advantage of using this technique, okay? But it's fully dependent on the vertex count. That's it. So what about the nanite inside the Unreal Engine 5? So you can use vertex paint on the nanite object. It means the Unreal Engine is going to tessellate your model, so you don't need to take care of increasing or decreasing the amount of the vertices on the surface, and it's going to happen automatically after enabling nanite on your mesh. But there is two downsides. The first one is because of the nature of the nanite, when you come back and you have distance from the mesh, the cluster of the nanite is going to be bigger and bigger, and its effect on the mask that you create for your material. So maybe in the far object, we lose some details and just mixing between surfaces on unwanted way, okay? This is the first problem. And the second one is painting on the nanite in vertex color. It's not real time. It means you couldn't do it like this, okay? You need to paint, apply it, wait to result, and that's it. So you can use it. It's still worth it to use vertex paint on the nanite object, but it's kind of out of your control in some way, okay? So this is the downside if you want to use the vertex color on the nanite object. But in general, the vertex color is a very good method to achieve high quality texturing and shading on the model without increasing texture amount and decreasing your performance. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, now it's time to talk about the mask technique here. And let's see how we can combine different layers inside a shader with a mask, okay? So for this purpose, you can use Unreal Engine, you can use Photoshop, or you can use Substance Painter. It depends on your goal, mission, and your needs. For example, if you have some hard surface object that you want to use this technique, the Substance Painter is the best option because you can generate some curvature, ambient occlusion, or paint on the edges, and etc. Okay, so for this purpose, I mean the modular asset that I have, I can use the built-in tool inside Unreal Engine. So let's do that. In the material that we want to use on the mask technique, I just copy and paste from the Vertex Paint. So we have 3 different layers with 2 layers. And instead of loading vertex information in the shader, I'm going to use a mask, a texture input here, okay? And this mask is a simple mask that I create inside the Photoshop with a small size, 512 black texture. And it's very important to make it black, okay? And I bring it here and just define the information in red channel is the mask that I'm going to use for combining between C1 and C2. And the information in the green channel is the mask for defining where we should see the C1, C2 result and C3. Okay, so that's it. Let's save it, come back to the test scene, and I'm going to create a material instance here and put it here. Okay, that's it. Let's go back to the mesh paint, and inside the mesh paint we have different tab here, and we discussed vertex color section, and now it's time to focus on texture. So what is textures here? In this tab we can paint directly on the texture that we load in the shader that we applied on the mesh. Okay, so let's select this model and go to the paint. And as you can see on the texture painting, I can define which UV channel should I paint, which texture should I paint on it. And if you have, for example, a full material setup here, you can see a lot of texture here, but you need to focus on the mask texture. Okay, so select the mask texture here. And after that, you can just come here and paint on the surface. That's it. So in real time, you're just modifying the texture that you have in the content. So the first downside of this technique is you couldn't use the same resource on different object and create different variation like what we had on the Vertex paint. But the quality, as you can see here, is super. So you can paint here very well without any kind of bad edge effect or something like that. And the size of this texture is 512. And we can go and just downgrade the size to 64, and let's save it, come back here. And as you can see, it's good enough for blending to material with 64 pixel on the mask. So the quality is high, but the downside is if I come here, duplicate this, it's not like what we have on the Vertex color. And I couldn't come here and just go to the paint, pick the green and just paint it here. So this is a downside of this technique, but the advantage of using this technique is we have a high quality mask at the end with small size texture. Okay, so now we can understand the mask technique is great when we want to talk about the quality, but it's not quite good when we have a bunch of different assets. And for each asset, or it's better to say, if you want to have different variation on each asset, we need to have different mask. So this is the downside of this technique, but on the other hand, we have quality, even with small size of the mask or texture. Okay, so before going and talk about the new feature that I want to mention here, I just need to show you how to change the mask here to have different result between these two planes. Okay, let's go to the content browser and I'm going to create an instance again. After that, I'm going to put the new mask here into the mask input, save it, and now let's put it here. So the second model has different material instance, and when I come to the textures, paint, as you can see, the black mask 2 is selected here, and I can paint differently. So we can create variation like this. Okay, now we understand the basics here, and we know the concept here, and now it's time to go and focus on new feature that can improve our process in the texturing when we're dealing with mask or vertex paint. But before that, do not forget to like this video, subscribe the channel, and comment in the comment section and share your thought here. And if you have any kind of request here for the next video, just let me know in the comment section. Okay, now it's time to talk about the new mask method here that I want to mention. So first of all, we have vertex paint information. We know the advantage and disadvantage of this technique in general. And we have the mask technique, and we know the advantage and disadvantage of that, okay? And what if I tell you we can keep the advantage of the vertex paint method and the mask paint method and make a new one, a new mask method, okay? So we can have the quality in the mask, even on a small size of the mask, and we can create different masks per instance without any tedious work. And this is a place that we need to talk about the new feature in Unreal Engine 5.5 and 5.6. New virtual mask inside the mesh paint section. So in general, we are creating a virtual texture and bring it into the shader and use it for masking, and we can change it per instance without any extra work. So how we can use this technique and how we can set up our file to use this technique. So first of all, you need to go to the Edit, Project Setting, search about the virtual texture, and we need to enable this option and this option, okay? And after enabling these options, you need to restart your engine. And most of the time, if you are using 5.6, the virtual texture is enabled by default, but it's better if you want to use it in a serious way, just disable this feature in the project setting and enable it again, and after that restart your engine. Okay, great. So we turn on the virtual texture in our project, and now in the material section, we need to bring a texture sample here, okay? And we are not going to load any kind of texture into that because this texture is a dynamic input for virtual texture. Let's search about the mesh paint. And as you can see, we have three different options here. One is mesh paint texture object. Okay, so I'm going to put it into the text input on the texture sample. And after that, we need to load the texture paint replace. So let's put the RGB to the mesh paint texture, or if you want to use RGB and A, you need to put RGBA to have 4 channels at the same time. So for the default, we use a constant value with 0 value in the default section, which means in default, we have a black screen or black mask. And if you want to have a paint texture, when you go to the tool and start painting, this default option is going to be disabled, and this texture sample is going to sample your mask from this node and bring it here. So we don't have this little colorful dots here. So how we can define our channel here or green channel here? So for this purpose, you need to mask component, and inside this small node, you can define here what kind of information you want to filter and you want to have. Okay, so this is our data, and I want to put it in the alpha. Let's duplicate this and make it like green, okay, and put this one to the second layer. That's it. So this is the default setup that we want to have here. So let's save it, come back here. I'm going to duplicate this model. Perfect. Let's go back to the mesh paint, and from the new mask, I'm going to create a new material instance, and I will put it here. Okay, so we have the material instance here, and we can change the values here. Very easy. And let's go to the mesh paint window, and right now we are going to use the texture color, which is the new feature in Unreal Engine 5.5 and 5.6 that we mentioned before. And we just need to select object that support the virtual masking in the shader we create for that, and we come here and just press add. And right now we're able to paint on the model, okay? And let's paint. So in the green, I just paint here like this, and let's go to the green, and here I'm just painting. Okay, perfect. So we are creating mask in virtual way. And if I come back here into the selection and create a duplicate, go to the mesh paint and start painting, as you can see, there is no issue if we want to create variation here. Very easy, you can just create the variation. Okay, that's great. And the question is, the quality of the mask is super low. How we can increase the quality? Or even we can change the UV channel, because we are talking about the virtual texture. We are talking about the texture, and texture should be connected to the UV. Okay, so let's go to the details, scroll it down, and we have a new tab here, which is mesh painting. As you can see, we have the mask here. So if I come and select this one, the texture is totally different. Okay, and if I go to the advanced here, we can override the texture coordinate index and the texture resolution. So if I come here and bring it to 512, I need to go back to the mesh paint and click on the fix, and let's go to the paint. And as you can see, if I paint here, the quality of the painting is more, and it's so much better compared to the previous one. So that's it. I simply bring the advantage from the Vertex paint, the advantage of the mask paint, and combine it together and use a new feature, which is texture color here, and create a new technique for painting on the mesh in real time without increasing the amount of texture or decreasing the performance with using a lot of material at the same time. That's it. And this is the first part of the video. And the second part is more easier. And we are going to talk about on the mission that we had, which was texturing the modular piece that we already had with the new technique that we just learned here. For this part of the video, you need to go to the Patreon page and download this zip file and unzip it and bring it to your content browser, as you can see. And after that, you have access to the material that I create and I want to use. Okay, now we are back in Unreal Engine, and before testing the material on this module piece, which is a small part of this building, I want to test it on this plane, and let's see what we have. So first of all, I come to the simple layer material and just create an instance from the general. Okay, so let's rename it to MI, and I name it as a plaster wall. And let's open this material instance and place it on this model. That's it. And as you can see in the details panel, we don't have any kind of input texture or parameter. Instead of using the old school structure for blending materials and surfaces together in Unreal Engine and Material Editor, here I'm going to use the layer system. So it's super easy. I'm just creating different layers here, define it as a background, as a layer 1, layer 2, and define the mask, and we just create a complex system. So for this purpose, we need to create some extra step. For each input, as you can see, we have layer asset and blend asset. And inside this folder that you copied from the zip file that I gave you and you downloaded from the Patreon, we have this layer asset and the blend asset, okay? So this ML general is the layer asset, okay? So let's bring it to the layers, okay? So the first one is a background, the first one is mod, and the second one is the plaster. So inside the blend asset, we need to define this MLB general, okay? That's it. So I'm going to talk about what we have here, but right now just open the layer asset, go to the input and just place your textures here. And this setup is based on the Quixel assets and surfaces. So if you want to use this structure, you need to bring the texture from the Quixel plugin or just manage your texture under the ORD as an occlusion, roughness, displacement in the texture pack, okay? So for the first one or background layer, I'm going to load the textures here. Okay, that's it. And because I want to use nanite tessellation here, I need to enable nanite on this plane. Okay, and let's go back to the details in the general material property overrides displacement scaling. If I bring it to something like 15, I can see the displacement here is going to be appear. Okay, so let's keep it as a 10 and I'm fine with the result. Okay, let's go back to the layer parameters and we have inputs here for each layer asset and we have parameters here for each layer asset, which I can increase the normal intensity, for example, for the stone, or I can decrease the normal intensity for the plaster and etc. Like I can control on the roughness, I can control on the color, I can add the color tint, I can play with the UV rotation or transformation like offset, tiling, and etc. So let's bring back to something like 1.1. I can go here, turn on the color tint, choose something like a little brown. In the color control, you can have control on the brightness, contrast, and saturation. You can rotate your UV here, as you can see, or even you can control on the tiling or offsetting your texture. And this first parameter is for UV index. For example, imagine this situation. You have an asset that it has two different UV channels. First one is going to be used for the mask painting inside the Unreal or even in Substance Painter or anywhere else. And the second UV channel should be used for the material and the surfaces, because in the second UV channel, I just maintain the textile density, and in this way, I can keep the same quality scale of the layers in general. Okay, so if I come here, put it as 1, this layer and this material is going to use the second UV channel on the model. So that's it. Let's go back. And I'm going to set up all the inputs for these materials and come back. Okay, now we have the material that we want here. Okay, the plaster has the plaster input and the mod has the mod input. And now it's time to talk about the blend asset. This is the place that all the blending is going to be happen. So this is the place that we are going to use the virtual mask, because we have a lot of models and I want to have different variation on similar model without duplicating the source mesh or material. So let's go back here and let's go to the mesh paint menu. So I'm going to select the model and just press add. So let's go to the paint and I'm going to change the color view mode to RGB. So we have a black mask here. So because the first layer and the background layer is going to blend together in red channel, I just keep the red channel here. And this is something that we can define even inside the material. So let's go back to the material. And if I come to the mod, blend asset, as you can see, I can control on, okay, I need red channel for blending between mod and background or mod and stone. Or no, I just need to have the green channel. And I can go to the mesh paint and use the green channel information to blend mod and the background. So this is something that we can define in this structure. And even we can control the contrast and the mask boost here. And we can play with the height layer and we can even invert the mask. So I'm going to explain how we can use this. So let's go and create a simple mask here. Okay, so I'm going to paint like this. Great. So as you can see, we can see the underneath layer, the stone layer here. I can go to the mask boost and just increase this one. So we couldn't see anything, right? Let's go back to the one. So I'm going to increase the contrast here and we can have some interesting result. I can come here and invert the blending. And this is another interesting result that we have here. So I can play with the contrast and that's it. Okay, so we have this mask for the mod and we can paint here to cover. If I hold shift, I can remove the painting result on the red channel, or I can add it like this. Okay, that's it. So let's go for the next channel, the green one. So I'm going to paint here on the green channel, but nothing happened because we need to come to the plaster, blend asset in the parameter and just enable the G channel. And that's it. So we can create our mask here. And whenever we want, we can go to the mod, blend asset, parameter, and play with the contrast, or even we can boost our mask like this. Okay, so let's increase the contrast here. As you can see, we are using the height layer for blending in some parts. And we can even boost our mask a little bit. And we can even use the invert blending option and have a result like this one. But I prefer to have the blending this here. Okay, perfect. And what about I want to remove this blending here, but not with the boost, because if I want to use boost, it's general effective. Okay, so how can I remove some of these spots? I need to come here and just enable override height layer. And after that, come to the paint section and enable alpha. So inside this color picker, if I put the alpha to 1, it means I want to remove this area. Okay. And if I bring it to the 0, it means I just want to have this blending or height layer blending area here. Okay. And this is very important. So we can use the alpha here as a height layer control, even without this parameter here. So let's go back to the mod. And I want to remove the plaster. Okay, so let's go back here. And if I use this value slider here, it can act like the height layer control in somehow. So as you can see, I can paint here, come to the boost mask and control it. Let's invert the mask. Okay, this is so much better for the blending. And I can play with the contrast here, increase the boost. Okay, and let's override it. And let's bring up the alpha value here. Okay, make it as 1. That's it. We can play with the boost again, or we can play with the control. Let's go to the green. So let's go back to the red and I just place some stone. That's it. So this is the way that we can combine different material in the Unreal Engine with this color texture feature and just remove the limitation that we had before in the Unreal Engine. Okay, so now it's time to focus on the actual model. instead of the plane. So now we understand how it's work. So let's open this model. Okay, so in the plaster section here, I want to use this kind of material. So I just place the material that I create here into the plaster wall slot, and that's it. Okay, so let's save it, come back, and this is what we have, right? So let's go to the material instance, and for the background into the UV control, I'm going to increase the tile to something like 2, or we can go for the 3. Okay, that's it. So let's go to the mesh paint, and we want to test it. So let's test, and just select this model, press add, and just select the paint, and in the red channel, I want to paint some plaster. Okay, this is the mod layer, so like this, and I can control it with some slider like this. Okay, let's go to the green, and I'm going to decrease the size. Okay, and let's put the plaster. Okay, perfect. So we have plaster on the stone and the mod under that, and that's great. Let's play with the contrast and boost value here. Okay, perfect. So let's decrease the boost mask here. Nice. And right now we need to go and convert the mask that we create here to, for example, this slot. So how we can do that? Let's select this model, copy that, select this one, and just paste it. So as you can see, I can transfer all the works that I done from a single model to another one. And after converting this painting, we can go here, select the paint, and repaint this area. That's it, like this. And there's no connection between these modules, like what we have on the Vertex color method. And we have the quality and the control without thinking about the topology and the vertex count, which is very simple here. And there is no extra vertex here to support this painting. And that's awesome. And that's very interesting. Okay. And with this structure that I provide to you, we can create so many interesting results with a lot of control and flexibility. Okay, that's it. So this is the way you can use virtual texture color inside the newest Unreal Engine version 5.5 and 5.6. So if you like this video, hit the like button, share your mind in the comment section, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification ring. That's it. So be safe, be creative, bye.